Hi, I'm Anita Huberman. I'm CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade, and we are Surrey's city building business organization. I'm speaking to you from the territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen Katsi Semiahmoo and Tawasin First Nations. Thank you so much for being with me today in terms of speaking to you about what's happening on the ground in Surrey. And joining me is our partner on our Surrey Labor Market Intelligence Reports, Mr. Kerry Jothen. He is the principal and CEO of Human Capital Strategies. Kerry, welcome.
Morning. Thank you, Anita.
Thank
Pleased to be here.
Thank you so much for your partnership to Surrey's City Building Business Organization. Kerry, we just released Surrey's newest labor market intelligence report. Can you give us an overview of what's happening on the ground for Surrey businesses?
Thanks. Yes, in November, the latest data we have, uh, the positive momentum of recovery continued in BC and in Surrey, but it has slowed since September and the summer for obvious reasons, with the higher incidence of COVID cases in BC and the Fraser Health region. Um, in October to November in Surrey, there was about a 2.5% increase in employment, or about 7,000 jobs. But that still leaves a deficit of about 12,000 jobs since before the pandemic. In other words, at the peak of the impacts, we lost about 37,000 jobs in Surrey, and now we're down to about 12,000. So we've recovered over 24,000 of those. And that includes the 7,000 in the last month to the end of November.
Who were the winners and those industries that we need to also pay attention to provide support moving into our economic future, Kerry?
Hmm. Well, it's interesting. There's a number of industries in Surrey that whose employment in November actually exceeded the pre-pandemic level of employment. Those are natural resources, utilities, professional, scientific, and technical services, and even accommodation and food services, and public administration, governments. Interesting with accommodation and food services. In October, in the greater Vancouver region, not just Surrey, that was the only major region in Canada in which the accommodation and food services industry had a net employment increase since February. But those job winners, agriculture, forestry, fishing, mining, oil and gas, they grew by about 900 jobs since February. So higher than the pre-pandemic levels. Utilities grew by almost 700, and professional, scientific, and technical services by 560. So those were the big gainers since the start of this pandemic. The ones that have not come back, not recovered near as much, are construction, the so-called other services, which include personal services and other services that are very sort of high touch, and of course retail and wholesale, education services, and health, surprisingly. But the biggest ones in terms of not fully recovering since the start of the pandemic has been construction. They're down by still almost 6,500 jobs. Wholesale and retail in Surrey are down by about 6,500 jobs also. Transportation and warehousing, I didn't mention, but they're down by 11%, or 3,000 jobs. And other services, that agglomeration of different types of personal services is down almost 5,000 or 27% still since the start of the pandemic. In terms of occupations, obviously that's driven by some of the patterns in the industry patterns, but the job gainers were business, finance, and admin, natural and applied sciences, manufacturing and utilities, and natural resources, although that's a smaller one. In terms of occupational categories that are still down and haven't fully recovered are health, education, law, social communication, or community services. But the two big ones are sales and services are still down by 12,000 jobs in Surrey since February. And the other one is trades, transport, and equipment operators, which is down by over 8,000 since February. Those are the two big job categories that are still quite a bit down in Surrey.
You know, we also looked at three COVID impact issues that businesses and our workforce are facing. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes in business status, telework, mental health that were addressed in this month's Surrey Labor Market Intelligence Report?
Yes, thank you. And I underline that the data that I'm talking about now is at a BC level. We couldn't get this for just Surrey, but over 34% of businesses in BC laid off at least one staff member since the beginning of the pandemic. And more than half, 54% of accommodation and food service industry businesses laid off staff, which is 20% higher than the overall average. But if you look at some of the industries on the bright side that remained fully operational, 60% of the natural resource businesses remained fully operational during the COVID, 62% of finance and research and insurance, 61% of real estate. But the ones really impacted in terms of their operations, that other services category, the personal services that provide personal services, whether it's a barber shop or a hair salon or a spa or whatever it may be, only 23% of those remained fully operational, and only 4% of accommodation and food services remained fully operational. And then arts, entertainment, and recreation has really been hit hard, and therefore only 11% of those remain fully operational. Manufacturing was sort of in the middle. They were somewhat impacted. 37% remained fully operational, but about 27% were temporarily shut down and have since reopened. Another way of looking at it is in terms of whether or not they laid off staff, and the ones that were most frequently laying off staff during this period were, of course, some of the ones that I mentioned, the highest being accommodation and food services, where 55% of them laid off staff. And also wholesale trade, 47% of them laid off staff during this period, and 45% of arts, entertainment, and recreation laid off staff. So those were some of the impacts at the broad business level. Related to that, in terms of teleworking, it's interesting that 17% of businesses in BC expect 100% of their staff will continue primarily doing teleworking or working remotely, even after the pandemic. So that's almost 1 in 5 BC businesses saying that 100% of their staff will continue in that mode. More than 50% of the businesses indicated that they expect less than 10% of their staff to telework or work remotely. And those ones are other services, manufacturing, arts, entertainment and recreation, and wholesale trade. And that's because their employees have to be at the workplace because of the nature of their work. Um, any questions before I talk about mental health?
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, this is a big issue, and Anita, we know that the Surrey Board of Trade and your team and the work we did on the playbook really put in an effort to emphasize the importance of wellness and mental health for businesses. Quite a shift from the past, and so looking at statistics across Canada and BC. Overall, Canadians reported a significantly lower mental health index score compared to the pre-pandemic levels. It's obvious that healthcare workers and those on the front lines have been facing a decline in mental health. However, according to a survey conducted by Stats Canada, 88% of respondents to the survey indicated experiencing at least one symptom of anxiety in 2 weeks prior to completing the survey this fall. So just about 9 in 10 are having at least one symptom of anxiety. And this is in the workforce. The Morneau Chappelle company does a mental health index survey. And in November, that was the 8th consecutive month where Canadians indicated a strain on mental health. And in terms of the impact, in terms of the index, it's continued to go down over that 8 months since the start of the pandemic. Overall, British Columbians have indicated a slightly better mental health index score than across Canada. That was in November. Visible minorities have reported a significantly lower mental health score than Caucasians. And of course, those who have employed but saw reduced hours or reduced salary reported lower mental health scores. And those who experienced no reduction in employment actually obviously had the highest mental health score. Also of concern is that full-time students reported the lowest mental health score for the last 6 months in this index. I'll leave it at that.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Together, we are providing the only Surrey labor market intelligence on the ground, what businesses and workforces are facing. Thank you so much to Kerry Jothen of Human Capital Strategies. And you can find all of our resources at businessinsurrey.com, including Canada's first COVID-19 playbook for business. Ladies and gentlemen, make it a great business day. Thank you.
Thank you.